And here at home, CUPE members have voted in favor of the new tentative deal it struck with the province, meaning strike action is off the table. But what comes next now that a deal's been reached? To help answer that question, I'm joined now by Laura Walton, president of CUPE's Ontario School Boards Council of Unions. Laura, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
There's no question that you fought hard to get a deal for your 55,000 workers. 73% of them, we heard yesterday, voted in favor of the province's agreement. What do you say to the remaining 27%? And as we've seen some comments coming in from our viewers saying that they're just not happy with this agreement.
And they're not happy. And I think, to be clear, it wasn't Laura that fought for this agreement. This was 55,000 people who fought this government, who pushed back on a draconian legislation, Bill 28, that ripped apart, their rights as workers and imposed a collective agreement. And they fought back. And I think, one of the things that I think we need to be very clear on while the, government is saying that this is a strong mandate and they're, everything's settled, it isn't settled. There's a lot of fight left in these workers. And they're going to be there holding their school boards, holding this government accountable. It's now time to focus on the government and the school boards. Are they going to do what they said they were going to do? Are they going to bargain in good faith at the local level so that, people are receiving their wage increases? Because their wage increases don't happen until those local agreements are settled. Last round, we saw, school boards saying, well, you know what? If you want your wage increase, you need to take what's on the table. So we're going to be watching that closely. But we're also going to be watching closely this government. This government went out and said a lot of things in the last few months, much of which have not been able to be fact-checked. And we still haven't found these 1,800 new jobs that the minister claimed existed. We still cannot account for these 7,000, education workers hired. And, the question we have is, were they education workers or were they teachers? Or was, the minister just blurring the lines so that it looked good while he was speaking? But, we also need to keep fighting outside of a contract. We should not be fighting for workers just during negotiation. We should not be fighting for students just during negotiations. And we shouldn't be fighting for families just during negotiations. That should happen every single day moving forward.
So as you say, you're continuing this fight here, both OSSTF, EDFO, either in the midst of talks with the province or will be entering those talks. We've seen a huge rally of support from other unions for CUPE throughout this ordeal here. Does CUPE intend on participating at all or getting involved with other talks?
Well, we will be side by side where we are needed. OPSU is also in there. Unifor is also in with the government, SEIU, COPE. There are still thousands of education workers and teachers that need to get a collective agreement. And this government's not moving very fast on that either. And at the same time, we see some significant problems in our schools. Rates of violence are going through the roof. We are not having EAs replaced. We're not having custodians replaced. There are vacancies. There are what are called unfills happening with teachers, ECEs, education workers in general. I mean, things are not stable. Things are not normal. And CUPE just started to peel open that curtain. And I think, what we're going to be finding out is that while the government has been trying to tell us that everything is just tickety-boo, it's far from that. And even if outside of negotiations, this government needs to really do a hard fix on our publicly delivered, publicly funded education system.
The new 4-year contract will see an annual wage increase of 3.59%, but it really has no commitments to staffing, which is something that you were pushing for here. So what comes next year, and how do you push the government to maybe add some more or make that commitment to staffing?
So there are some service security language. There is service security language for the next 4 years, and very clear ways that the boards cannot just randomly cut. And that's a good thing. And it will be up to us as workers. Every single one of us should be monitoring those school boards, because what we've seen in the past is that school boards will cut education workers and hire a new superintendent, for instance. That's not going to fly. And so we're going to have to be vigilant on that. But we also need to be vigilant working with our community partners, working with families, working with parents, working with students themselves to really highlight what is needed in our schools. And we know already that what is needed in our schools is more funding to secure the workers that support the services that students need. Giving checks to parents is not going to support the work that services that students need. That's not going to help. We need to see it being put in to the people on the front line so that they're able to do this work. And if the government's not interested in negotiating this at a table, then we're going to be reminding them about it every single day as we move forward, that these services are not in place, that students are scrambling to get support from EAs, that they're scrambling to get support from speech language pathologists, that they're scrambling to get supports from psychometrists. These are the facts that are actually in our schools. And, we need to really be working on that. And I know that my teaching colleagues, I know that my education worker colleagues, they're at the table and they're going to be continuing to fight as well. And we will be there to support them 100%. But I call on the school boards as well. It's time for them to actually acknowledge what's happening in their schools. They don't have to buy what the government's selling.
Okay, Laura, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this morning. That is Laura Walton, president of CUPE's Ontario School Boards Council of Unions.